Hello, Elizabeth. Tell us what you've got.
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Maringer, and I am here with my vermicompost bin. Vermicomposting is worm compost, and this bin was created in October of 2002. So a very, very long time ago. I took a class, a master composting class over at the Civic Garden Center, and they taught me how to build a worm bin, and I've kept it going ever since, and I use what I get out of this to fertilize my plants in the garden. So if you want to come closer, Kelly, she's going to keep a social distance, but zoom in on this instead of on me. This is the worm bin, and you can see it's got air holes drilled into the side, and there's also holes on the bottom so that if there's excess liquid in there, it can come out the bottom. I made it with shredded newspaper, and the bottom of the bin is lined with shredded newspaper, and so is the top, like a 2-inch layer on the bottom and on the top. So I'm going to take out the newspaper so you can see my worms, and I feed the worms with compost from my kitchen. So every time we have a banana or an egg or any kind of fruit, my coffee grinds, all of that goes into this bin, and it's kept under my sink. And in the lid is a charcoal filter, and the charcoal filter keeps it clean smelling and makes it so that it can breathe in there without making my kitchen smell. So I empty it about once a week into here or into my big compost bins on the side of the yard. So I'm gonna pull out and show you. Here are my red worms. These are a special kind of worm. Are you close up on them, Kelly?
I am.
This is a special kind of worm that is specifically for vermicompost. They are heavy eaters, and they take all of those food scraps that I put into this bin and they eat it up like crazy. And the worm poop is what I harvest out, and they eat up the food, they eat up the newspaper. I put a little sprinkle of soil in here every time I add food just to give it some grit. And then this right here is what they call nature's gold. It's compost that's very rich in nutrients that we take and put in when I'm planting my plants in the garden. So on this side of the bin, you can see the last time I added food. You can see my eggshells, which I can crunch up. You can see a little piece of maybe broccoli, something that had been added. Here's more eggshells, and the worms are in it. They're eating it, and they're all nice and happy. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to move all of this over here. Since I fed on this side last time, I'm going to dig out a little hole. If I were harvesting the compost today, what I would do is I would make a pile and let all the worms don't like the sunlight. They don't like light, so they go down. I'd make a little pile, pull out all the pieces of newspaper. The worms would go down to the bottom, and I'd scrape off the top and get all the compost out. And that's what I use this bucket for. Brought it over in case I had a bunch to pull out, but I just harvested from here a couple weeks ago, so it's not quite ready. So I'm going to take and make sure I just have a good couple inches of newspaper down at the bottom. That's old newspaper, it's fine. I'll put some fresh newspaper on top. So I'm just making a layer there, and then I just dump in all my food scraps. You can see some onion in there. The coffee grinds I gotta kind of scrape out of the bottom. That's orange peel, all kinds of celery stalks, everything we've been eating. And then the worms will navigate over, they'll move over to the other side where the fresh food is, and they'll eat that all up. Now I'm going to take my newspaper and cover it back up. If you wanted to make a vermicompost bin, you could. You can order red worms online for vermicompost. Verma is the worm. And all you need is a tub, drill your holes, line it with newspaper, and put your worms in and your food scraps, and then just keep covering them up. It's very easy to do. Doesn't take a whole lot of work. Sometimes I don't visit my worm bin for several weeks, and then I'll come back and there'll be all kinds of vermicompost to harvest and put in my garden.
That is amazing. So Elizabeth, when you have your compost ready, do you just sprinkle that on top of the soil, or do you kind of dig your soil up and mix that around?
I don't make sure that there aren't any seeds in my vermicompost or in my compost bin. So because of that, I want to bury my compost. I don't want it to be have access to light so that those seeds will germinate. Because, so for instance, if I ate a tomato, or some tomatoes went bad and I put them in here because they're moldy and I don't want to eat them, or they're too soft, those seeds are all still in here. And if I were to put this on the surface, number one, it's not doing as much good to the plant because it's on the surface. Now the rain can wash the nutrients in, but it's better to have it in where the roots are. And then I'm gonna have less weed seeds growing up from the fruits and vegetables that I eat that I don't bother pulling the seeds out.
Got it.
So, and even then, sometimes I'll get like little tomatoes coming up in my garden that I didn't plant, but you know, that's okay. You can let them go, or you can just pull them out and use them as compost because they're real easy to weed out.
Wow, that's amazing. So yeah. Elizabeth, you keep this in your garage.
I keep it in my garage. Now, if it gets we've had some mild winters. If it were to get too cold, I would need to move it inside. If we were going to have like a really long cold spell, but we didn't have one this year, so I kept it in the garage all winter.
Okay. Wow. Thank you so much. Miss Elizabeth is going to take us over to her garden next, and she's going to show us how she plants cucumber seeds.